So hello, welcome again to another episode of Empowerment TV. I am your host, Dr. Janelle Jones. Listen, thank you all for joining me. I'm just appreciating the love and the support I am getting for this channel. We are here to share real stories with real people. So I'm always excited for you to join us. And I'm always having guests here that is able to share some powerful information. So y'all know y'all need to go grab your notebooks and your notepads. So before we get started, I'm gonna actually give a bio of my next guest, my next powerful guest. And I want to tell you, we're talking about powerhouse mindset, how to lead well, avoid burnout, and balance your mental health. So I'm here with my special guest, Tauna Batiste, and I'm going to tell you all about who she is. So Tauna Batiste is a nonprofit strategist, a queen maker, executive coach, and CEO of Drew Alexander Consulting. Over the course of her career, she has held progressive roles in nonprofits, including executive director and now CEO. She has worked with many leaders and organizations across the country. Tauna brings humor and spirited honesty to her talks, interweaving real-world experiences and industry nuance. She is passionate about ensuring leaders, and in particularly women, to equip them with the knowledge they need to be successful. Listen, I'm already like, oh my God, this is gonna be awesome. So get ready. Now, Tauna leads DAC, a nonprofit management firm, home to the Next Woman Up Leadership Academy, which focuses on developing strategies for nonprofit organization, specifically in organization optimization, leadership development, strategy, and capacity building. She's founded Next Woman Up, NWU, to support women in the nonprofit industry who wants to advance their careers and grow their leadership. NWU provides training courses, coaching, and community for women who are next up. Listen, that's a lot.
A little bit.
Little bit. I mean, I'm just excited to really for you to share. This is such a powerful topic. You know, a lot of times when we're in leadership, we see women who are powerful, but then they run into these different things when it comes to leading, especially women of color. So I really am so excited to have you here today. And before we get into kind of like the deep end of it, I do want you to share more about you. I know I read your bio, but there's always a reason why you do what you do. And that's what I want you to share with the viewers.
Well, Dr. Janelle, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I'm really excited to be here. I've been watching the channel grow and just, am honored to be able to be one of the voices that you highlight. I think one of the things about me is that I have been in this industry for a long time, but one of the focus has always been on growth and making people's lives better. And as I've moved through the different spaces, I've been really blessed to start mentoring more women who are younger than me, women who are older than me, and my peers. And what I find is that work is the work that excites me, that gets me so jazzed. Like, I love everything that we do in nonprofits to affect the community, but on that personal level, getting to meet with women and watch their growth. I was really fortunate in my career to have different women come along who mentored me, whether it be close by or afar, and that helped me to grow. I think of one mentor in particular that had a significant part in growth for me that I didn't know about. She spoke up on my behalf. She made a reference for me in a pivotal moment, and I had no idea until much later. But having those type of women in your life give you kind of this blueprint, that village, that auntie, vibe of we can follow the women ahead of us. And I just really want to foster that. And I think that comes through in everything that we do now. Even with Drew Alexander, we focus on supporting women in BIPOC-led organizations with an emphasis on Black women leaders, because there's so much as Black women that we face that is unspoken or unsupported because people don't, we are in it, we're in that work, doing the work every day. But there's not necessarily those same opportunities or tools or support systems to come alongside us. And so I really want to change that. Like everyone shouldn't have to leave the industry. Like I ended up leaving the industry because of some of those things, but that's not what I want to see. And just across the board in general, you should be able to pursue your dreams. You should be able to achieve. And sometimes that means that someone is holding the door open for you. And some days it means that someone is pulling you up while they're also holding that door. And so that is where my passion for the work comes from.
And I think it's awesome because a lot of people that I interview is always like, I want to bridge this gap. Like
Yes.
it's something that like, we have moments that's like positive moments, but I often see that it comes from a space of, oh, heck no.
Okay.
Right. So
like not today. Not today.
No, right. And I want you to talk to us about you talked about how you had roles or you did things in the nonprofit organization and, you were holding the door while pulling other people up. You had mentors and things like that. But I know we've had conversation about some of your struggles being in that space as a Black woman. So I would love for you to share with us kind of that part of your journey.
Yes. So I started with a statistic that I share often with people to kind of frame where it is. The nonprofit industry accounts for at least 10% of business industry in the United States. And so people don't know that the sector is so big. So you have that component of it. 70% of that workforce are women. Of that, 40% of leadership are women. Of that 40%, only 23% are women of color.
Wow.
And so I say that to say I started at the bottom, right? I came in as a coordinator. I intentioned for this life. I started in college and knew that I wanted to go into nonprofit service. And very quickly, once I graduated, adjusted my focus from direct service into an administrative track. I knew even then that I wanted to become an executive director. But as a 22-year-old, I had no idea, like, what is the path? And being a high achiever, I was even asking the question then, like, what is the path? What job do I need to take to get there? There's not really a defined path in nonprofits. And so I moved around, advancing my career. I completed my advanced degree. So I have a master's in nonprofit management. And that was really, at the time, it was such a new degree that I feel like in that moment, it hurt me a little bit. And that I would apply for jobs and people would see it and go, you're overqualified. Or I would apply for other jobs and people would see it and be like, you don't have enough experience. Wow. So I was kind of in this cycle for a little while where it was just things were standing. And this is kind of where Next Woman Up came from. I was frustrated. I'm like, I have 10 years of experience and an advanced degree. I should be highly employable. And yet I'm struggling to find a role that really challenges me. And so I had a mentor at the time look at my resume and say, sis, you got to switch up how you do your resume, which is what we teach in Next Woman Up. Is how to appropriately present yourself so that you're showing the best aspects of you and that people look at your resume and think, I can't not call her and I got to call her today. And so went through that period of time. And then I essentially started over, took a coordinator role. And within 2 years, I was an executive director.
Wow.
Which is like a crazy ascension. But in that, there were struggles, like in becoming who I was meant to be. I faced microaggressions in all but one. The coordinator job, that one, I was like, I don't think I had a problem there. But in almost every job or role that I've had, especially as I've advanced in leadership, there has been microaggression. There has, for a lot of, a good portion of my career, I was advanced beyond my quote unquote age, right? And
Mhm.
so I would show up in spaces. And so there would be discrimination because I was young, or there would be discrimination because I was a Black woman. Um, and a lot of that, I didn't realize that I was experiencing microaggressions or that I was experiencing discrimination until much later in
Mm.
reflection. That it's like, oh, wait, that's it. Hold on. Let's go back. I remember it very clearly. I was experiencing a challenging time with a previous employer, and I came home, and I am faith-based and God-centered. And so I was having a conversation with the Lord. And I really believe that it was revealed to me. It's like, no, they don't see you like Tauna. You see you like Tauna, right?
Mhm.
That is who you represent. And when you show up as your full and authentic self. They see you as a Black woman.
Wow.
And I was like, I didn't understand the difference because I had, for the course of my life, from early schooling until yet today, I have often been the only Black woman in a space. And so I'm used to it, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that was foreign to me. And because of it, I think I felt comfortable in a lot of spaces because I know what it is, right?
Mhm.
It's not, I don't find my value in what you think about me. I come in ready to get down.
Yeah.
So when I had that revelation, it really shook me. And I tell people, and I don't know if we've talked about this recently, but I tell people I took myself to therapy because I was like, this right here, what is happening? Like because I was distraught. So to recognize what kind of trauma I was experiencing
Mm.
in the workplace. And so I went to a workplace trauma counselor and
Okay.
therapist and really sought some counsel in that time. And we together set some goals,
Mhm.
put some clarity to it. I had to make some hard decisions about what was I going to tolerate and what was the boundary, where was I not going to be um, pushed. And so we made those decisions, and I stayed in that organization for another year with purpose. And it
Mm.
was, I will stay here because I am building my resume, because I also now recognize the power of what I can do. I will stay here, I will grow, and I will manifest the thing that I want to have. Right.
Mm.
But there were times, I mean, like there were tears, there was fussing and cussing. Um, there were times where I had to call my village of support and say, listen, I need to be upheld. My husband has heard more than a few rants
Mhm.
because the it's not fair, right? Because this
Mhm.
is not something that our counterparts experience in the same way. And it's part of the stress that we carry as
Mhm.
Black women and as Black people as a whole, that are things that are done to us that are hard to articulate and that very few other people want to take responsibility for. So it also makes it hard to heal
Yeah.
because it's not being acknowledged, and you almost always are being gaslit, like, oh, that wasn't because you were Black, or that wasn't because we weren't being sensitive to you. I mean, we dismissed your idea because it wasn't the idea, except for almost all my ideas. You come back around and be like, oh yeah, we're going to do that. Yeah, who said that? Because I said that.
Wow. So it
Like,
was like they were creating it, they were bringing it back around like it was their
oh,
idea.
girl, yes. All the time. It used to happen all the time where I would say something or I would point out. I have a consultant's mindset, and I have for most of my career. I
Mhm.
am a problem solver. I want who you want to come in and look at your thing, and kind of like I tell people, I'm a combination of Nanny McPhee, right? When you need me but don't want me, that's when I'm here for you. And
Yeah.
when you want me but don't need me, then I gotta go. And then it's a little bit Sherlock Holmes. And in the Robert Downey Sherlock Holmes series, where he sees things and it pulls apart, and he's able to see the calculate of how it's all going to go to get to the goal and then put it back together. That is my superpower. is
Wow.
that I can come in and dissect a problem and tell you what you need to do to optimize. But everybody doesn't always want to hear those things. And they don't necessarily want to hear it from someone that they have internalized challenges with, and it makes them feel away. I don't have any responsibility in that, but how you choose to experience it. So if it makes you feel away to be like, well, her brilliance is making me feel small today. Boo, I ain't got nothing to do with that. You need to be brilliant at what you're brilliant at and let me do what I do.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's for your good. So I have been in situations and places where I have increased donations significantly, and actually multiple times, and still the goal was for them to get rid of me. Multiple experiences with that, where it's like I came in, I doubled, I increased, like I have crazy stats, right? Provable. I am effective. So I've come in and I've increased our engagement by 500%, or I've increased our year over year income by 2,800%. And yet that was not by certain leaders, not everyone, right? It's never everyone, but certain leaders didn't care that I had that level of success and just were like, get her out of here. And so we talk a lot. I've been talking a lot in my circles lately about the concept of pet to threat.
Yes.
And so for your listeners, if they're not familiar, pet to threat is the theory, and it's really not a theory. It is the phenomenon of when a Black woman in particular, but can be really anyone, is invited into a space with this great welcome and just exuberance, really, like, hey, we're so excited. So you come in as the pet, right? Okay. We're so excited to have you. We're welcoming you. We're so excited of what your genius can do in this space and what you will accomplish. And then once you actually start to perform, then they become threatened by you. And so now the microaggressions start. Now it is no longer, you're not welcomed in the same way that you were, because they're threatened by your ability to perform what they were just celebrating. And so for a lot of Black women in particular, it makes you feel like you're going crazy, because this is an abusive relationship. Like, let's break it down. This is an abusive relationship. And this is something that is not healthy and conducive to your mental health, your well-being, but it will make you feel like, now, didn't these same people, and I have such clear memories of someone beaming, like I was their newborn baby at me when they were introducing me into the role, and were like, she's going to be amazing. And I lived up to the expectation, and somewhere in there, it switched. And that's not the same look I got. It was, well, you're difficult, or you don't want, and someone told me once, they were like, you need to be open to other people's ideas. And I was like, not if they're wrong. I believe that genius comes from everywhere, but I am confident in what I know.
Yeah.
Right. And when I know something, I'm not willing to just be like, oh, well, what I know is no longer valid.
Yeah.
No, what I know is what I know, and you're going to need to convince me otherwise. And so to be challenged in ways that the comments and things that come to mind, I'm like, oh, y'all were real slick. Yeah. Real slick with it. But there's some other research around pet to threat is really a new term that I think helps us to name what's happening. Yeah. But there's other research, and I have to go back and look and find it. But I once came across a study that talked about how Black people, Black women, Black men are treated differently than their counterparts in places of leadership. So whether it is the ability to create, innovate, and fail, Black and brown people are not given the opportunity to fail, where you may see their other counterparts be able to go out here and try anything with an open. I've also been a recipient of in the same meeting, oh, this person tried this thing, it didn't go well. I tried a thing. We came out even. Oh, Tanya, you just really shouldn't go back to that. I mean, we're just disappointed at the results. And it was like, I'm sorry, am I in the same? My redheaded friend over here had just as much of a flop as I did, like, and that we both broke even. But what we're like, oh, well, we're going to put some additional staff around you. We're going to probably invest some dollars. Tana, yeah, you're just going to need to figure out how to fix that.
So good luck.
Basically. And so, it's that thing of understanding and reclaiming your power about what part of this do I need to own? Because we do need to have the ability to fail. You cannot grow unless you try new things. And in trying new things, you're not always going to get it right. And so the safety for us, especially as leaders, to be able to come into spaces and to live this life of exuberance and growth mindedness, we need to be comfortable and feel safe that we can fail at things and be able to learn and be supported in moving forward. But there's a lot around just how that management process is different, how the discussion to people is different. And with kind of the attack on DEI right now that is happening, these are the things that people are talking about. These are the things that they're trying and striving to change and to bring awareness to. And one of the things that I always note is, to a certain extent, we are shouting to the wind. It's necessary, right? Like, I'm not taking away from the work, because I think the work is necessary, and we need those people to shout to the wind, because there are those who desire to hear.
Yeah.
At the same time, someone recently asked me, in a particular space in which we serve, they're like, Tana, so what do you do about DEI in this space? And I looked at them and I said, with all respect, that's not my problem to fix. That's your system that's broken. I'm Black and fabulous. I'm present. And the reason why there aren't more me of this in this space is because you and your cousins need to work some things out. Right.
So I want to actually go back, because you like educated, like, and I'm like, okay, I should have brought my notebook out, because normally I use my notebook to kind of guide it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back. One of the things that you said was very impactful for me was when you talked about just going through the trauma.
Yes.
And I think the reason why I want to bring that out is because I don't think people understand that there is a trauma behind being, like, when you are code switching. I don't even think you were code switching, but when you were being
absolutely not.
Right. When you're treated, because you're
treated
like,
poorly.
Who I am.
Right. But this is what you get.
This is what you get. But when you're treated, which is why I love you, because you're very authentic, but it's like, you're being treated a specific way.
Right.
In response, not because of like I love, like, you talk about, like, the pet to threat, right? We're not talking about being treated away because I'm not doing the job. I'm going above and beyond my boss, right? In a lot of situations, it's like I'm going above and beyond my supervisor and management in the situation. So I'm recognizing that it's not that you are attacking me for my work, for what I'm doing to the company. You're attacking me for something I cannot change.
That part. You're attacking me for your insecurities. So I think that was one of the things, because I very distinctly remember several times coming home and having this conversation with my husband and saying, I am doing and listing the things out, right? Because I was not aware and not educated. I've done a lot more to educate myself since then, but I was not aware of why it was happening to me. And that was why it was so traumatic, is that I am killing it for all intents and purposes. I am putting my all into this. I show up, I deliver, and to do all the, to check all the boxes, and then still at the end of the day, be treated poorly. Your brain is just like, that doesn't reconcile. Right.
Yeah.
And so we talk about it with youth, we talk about it in all different places, that whatever you reinforce is what you get, but the reinforcement is all off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just like, and I used to tell him, like, this is an abusive relationship, because just like in a abusive relationship where a person is coming and giving authentically and positively, but is receiving negative feedback,
Yeah.
it is just really hard to process and to understand and not accept blame.
Yeah.
Right. Because in a lot of abusive relationships, the victim blames themselves for why they're being treated this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that does not stop when you get to the workplace. So this whole concept, I actually wrote a post today. So talking about the dangers of overwork.
Yeah.
And what we sometimes do and internalize it to is, I'm receiving this negative feedback, and so I'm going to work twice as hard to prove that I am worthy and that I am productive and that you should like me.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we get into this cycle, but this is something that plagues Black people and Black women in particular, that we go in and now we're working all of these hours, and now we're taking our work home, and now we're doing all of these things because of the trauma we're experiencing, to try to stop the trauma. Instead of recognizing the only way to stop trauma is to separate from it, is to create a boundary of what you will and will not accept. And if that means that you can stay here and be healthy, then that is one option. And if that means that you need to leave for your health and find an environment that is actually supportive, where you are actually welcomed and appreciated, that's a whole, another conversation. But I find that it's such a thing, because it was those feelings of inadequacy when you're doing everything you know to do and everything right.
Yeah.
Right. To be up against someone else's insecurities, which you cannot fix. Right.
And
They got to
especially
do their
based
own
off
work.
something, sorry, superficial.
No,
Like,
go ahead.
how are you, like, so they have an insecurity, but what about like a prejudice? Like, like, and some of it is probably covert or over, but it's just like, what is it? And one of the things
It's definite.
and it's like the pet to threat. So like, I'm grooming you, I'm welcoming you, and I'm doing this. What happened when they find out, like, oh, she can really do it? Like, because it's like, where's the bait and switch? Like, you hired me for these specific set of skills. You looked at my resume. You said, oh, she would be a perfect fit for this. I came and did the job because that's what you hired me for. And then you're surprised.
Listen, I'm with you. It doesn't make good sense, but I also don't think that an abusive relationship and a romantic relationship makes sense, where someone has done everything to care for you, and what you do is then take your frustrations out on them for anything else, right? Like, I don't understand the idea of hitting someone who has just cared for you in every way possible. And I think it's that same mentality of, and some of it goes into, and I was starting to explore this. So this is not yet researched, but we'll talk about the concepts that are coming to mind. And the idea of the imprints and the impacts of slavery on our society and our social norms. And so if we go back to a place where you have I'm using new terms. So instead of using slave master, we're using a kidnapper.
Okay.
A people kidnapper. When they're abusing the people that they have kidnapped, and the way it flows through their household, right? Because in white supremacy, obviously the white man is top. White women are not immune to their power dynamic, to their abuse, to their stifling. And I think some of that has been internalized in a way that kind of follows that mentality of slavery, and having, oh, well, he did this, to her, the
Mhm.
only person she has power over is either the kidnapped people or
Mhm.
her children.
Mhm.
She may be terrible to her children, but she is definitely terrible to the people.
Yeah.
Right. And so that moved forward when we look at the way our society is, because in my instance, it has been all people of other backgrounds. However, it is specifically for me a reoccurring experience with white women, in
Mhm.
that I can gracious upon entry, right? But whenever they become threatened that I may outshine them in a space, it switches. It's a
Mm.
very quick switch. Then it is the conversation changes, and then it's kind of a put down. I remember I said to a supervisor once, I just, and this is personality based, right? It was, I know that you do these things for
Mhm.
my colleagues. I don't need that from you. And I was
Mhm.
just being transparent, right? I don't actually need that.
Mhm.
And so, what would be best for me in our relationship is, can I have these things from you?
Mhm.
Right? She was 100% offended. Well, why don't you need me? Food is not about
Wow.
you. Like, and so
I'm
that,
stuck. You see me over here looking like
but this is where that insufficiency and that insecurity, that you don't feel needed, that's not
Mhm.
on me. Right? Like, I came to the world the way the Lord made me,
Yeah.
and confidence was just part of it. Sorry.
Mhm.
And so when I show up like I show up, I'm not asking you for permission to be Tana. I am going to be me from the sun up to the sun down.
Mhm.
So it is, and I'm going to also tell you what I need, because
Mhm.
I can articulate those things. I'm mature enough to recognize that I've done enough work to be able to say what I need. It's insecurity. And so it doesn't make sense. And I think that's the hard part for us, is that we want to be like, okay, well, when we see it, do this
Yeah.
to fix it. But it's not on us. There's some things, going back to, the way a system is broken. I can't, I don't have the power to change
Yeah.
your system. And
Yeah.
I don't have the power to fix your insecurities.
Mm.
You have to check that yourself. So what I have begun to do, and when we coach women who are going through similar situations, I challenge people. We need to be really mindful about the spaces in which we put ourselves in. You
Mm.
need to look at it and understand, is this the space I want to be in? Is this a space that will be able to celebrate me consistently?
Mm.
Right? Or is this a space that will, has the potential? There, you could not pay me enough. One, you just can't pay me enough to go back to work for someone else, just because I happen to love entrepreneurship. But if I went back, you could not pay me to go into predominantly white space.
Oh,
There's no dollar amount.
and I want, like, let's break that down, because,
Yeah.
if you're telling me that 43% of the leaders in, like, the nonprofit world are women, which is
Yes.
really, like, is a small percent, because you got the 10%, that you got, like,
Right.
it's like really
Right.
breaking it down to a small
Yes.
percent of how many women is actually in this role. Especially if nonprofit is here, then it breaks it down here, and
Mm-hmm.
women is here, and then Black
Mm-hmm.
women is here. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
small.
Right.
But I'm thinking about women who, they have these ideas. I know, like, in my program, I tell women, like, hey, start the program and then start a nonprofit. Do something that will
Mm-hmm.
bring money, then do something that,
Absolutely.
and with nonprofits, like you said, they're community focused. They're really here to
Right.
help grassroots
Right.
organizations and things like that to get the community going, bring money in to really impact change. That
Right.
is the theory of,
Right.
the whole thing of most nonprofits. But, a lot of times if you're doing this at that level, you're passionate about it, right?
Oh,
I got into
absolutely.
this because I wanted to help
Yep.
this and do this. I struggle with this, and this is my
Right.
life. So now I'm this Black woman who, is in leadership of nonprofit, right?
Right.
Because it's my passion to bridge
Mm-hmm.
this gap in whatever area that is.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're saying read the room, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
when you go in there, you need to figure some stuff out. But how many times, because you coach these women, have you met a woman, particularly an African-American or brown woman, who stayed?
Oh, absolutely. There are those who are that is their path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not to be moved off the path. I think for me, it was a moment where I have done it for 20 years. And I was like, here's the thing. I can still impact and actually have a greater impact on the work by stepping out and doing what I'm doing. Right. So the actual goal of what we're doing is to step in. So you have an ally, and not an ally who has to, is not familiar with your experience. And I'm not taking away from allyship, but you have a sister who understands where you are and what you're going through and what you're up against. And so then we come in and we're able to hold you up, right? So we got your back and we're able to help you move through the things. But no, there are a ton of women, and that's really where our work focuses, is if you are a woman in a space that does not look like you, we want to come and be your champion. If you are in the nonprofit sector, we want to teach you how to move through these spaces and help educate you so that you're not internalizing the things that are happening around you, because there are a million things happening around all of us every day. And we make choices about what we're going to internalize. Right. Just like driving in traffic, you can make a decision whether you're going to internalize the traffic as part of your problem, or you just riding until we get through it. And when I get to where I'm going. Right. But the reasons why you're able to make that delineation is because you have done some type of work to say, you know what, it doesn't serve me to internalize traffic. I can't change that, but I can help me. And it's the same thing in the space, because a lot of women are in this work. It is their life's work. And I talk about, we talk a lot about glass ceiling. So glass ceiling is already the problem with the percentages, right? But I also talk about a burnout cliff. So there's some people who are talking currently about a glass cliff, which there is, but I also talk about a burnout cliff. And what I reference in that is that you have worked so hard and for so long to get to where you are, and you've been doing double, triple work. You've been managing and navigating all of these microaggressions. You've been experiencing all of these challenges, and then you get to the place that you want to be, and you're just tired. Right? Like that's just it. It's exhausting. And so our current work is around how do we support women who are at that place? How do we offer both an immediate reprieve, but also a lasting reprieve? And for us, that's like developing our executive leadership retreats. And so where we teach about emotional IQ, and we teach about doing breath work to address trauma in the workplace. And we teach about how your wellness is connected. And really, if you want to be a great leader, incorporating wellness of all aspects into your leadership is the long-term way to be healthy and to be a great leader. And so it's important to us to recognize these are the types of challenges that women are facing. And what do we do to help keep women in the space so that they can show up?
But I'm thinking all kinds of stuff. And like, cause I'm thinking, you said something that's very impactful to me that was just like, oh, this is an aha moment, because you talked about, one of my questions was, how do you make a good leader? And you said, I need you to understand the importance of your mental health, right? Your wellness. It's not just about, okay, I'm showing up, I'm doing all that, because we talked about, burnout is real. So it's like, okay, I need you to understand that if you're not well in this space, because you're overdoing it, you're working triple out, pushing yourself beyond your measures or your means, it's very important to will it back and to get into the wellness piece of it, because that is what makes a good leader.
Absolutely. For us, a good leader is someone who is aware. Right. And awareness goes in a lot of different directions. Awareness is that you're working with humans, and they are sometimes broken, and they are more than just the 8 hours you see them, and they have complexity to them. Leadership is also about having vision and understanding, how you're going to get that. But I can teach, there are certain things I can teach, right? So I can teach you about your business operations and how to be a whiz at that. And I can teach you how to be an amazing leader and how to stand up and tell the story and how to rah-rah your people and how to manage with grace, right? The part that is most important for us to teach right now is that you're taking good care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't do us any good to give you all of those other aspects, but then to leave you with this gap in understanding that you also must be a priority in the puzzle. And so that means making time and space and room for you to seek help when you need help.
Yeah.
For you to take rest. This keeps coming up, and it's like our central theme this year is rest, because there is research that says, and I can give you the link so you can include them, but research that says the things that the best leaders, top leaders, best athletes, the thing that they do is rest. We are looking at Ariana Huffington's study around sleep, about the importance of sleep and not just what it does for you physiologically, because that is huge, but what it does for your mental health and how, it addresses having dealt with anxiety. I know that the number one thing to trigger anxiety is a lack of rest. Right. And so we put all of that front and center, and we hone in on it, because it's like, no one else is giving you this opportunity. So we will, because you're important enough that if we can support you in this way, and that extends your career and that betters your health and your wellness, that's good for all of us, because everywhere else you show up is changing the world. And if we don't have the world changers, I don't want to be here, because it's not going to be a pretty situation. But it's really important for us to center, and that's what we're so excited about doing in our retreats, is centering a place for women to come and not just talk about rest, but experience it, to model it. Where we give you the space to do that. So,
and I think, I know I want to say, because I honestly, I know we talk about mental health. I know that it's getting better, right? The talk of it is the talk of it.
Yes.
I'm going to highlight the talk of it is getting better. Right. But what happens when you really implement it? Because a lot of times, like we talked, being a woman, you already have multiple roles. You already do all this other stuff, right? Then you're in a leadership role. And a lot of times you're neglecting something, and oftentimes is yourself. Right. So tell us some of the signs, like you notice with dealing with people, and probably your own experience, burnout.
Yeah, burnout comes for everyone. It looks a little bit different. It's actually now a nationally, an international recognized diagnosis. So WHO recognized burnout as a subdiagnosis of chronic fatigue in 2019. But what it looks like is tiredness, lethargy, moodiness. It looks like the inability to focus. It looks like feeling like you're failing. It looks like depression. Wow. It looks like it can go in the other direction, right? Burnout can actually make you work harder on things and push more, knowing that there's a cliff coming, right? The love that you felt for something seems to be waning, right? The interest you have in it seems to be waning. You can be dialing it in. You can become a version of yourself that you're not familiar with. So I think for a lot of people that I would question, are they experiencing burnout, are the ones that were like, they are not nice. Like they just don't, they used to be nice, but they are not nice anymore. And anytime you're under chronic stress, these are things that can happen to you, right? So the same things that we see in chronic stress are what you see in burnout. But it also is the idea that you have to handle everything on your own. Yeah. The idea that you don't have community and support. These are all things that we want to address because we want to make sure that women know they're not in this journey alone, that you're not the only one that feels this way, that you're not the only one who has experienced it, and that there is help. For some, it is seeking therapy.
Yeah.
For some, it is seeking medication. For
Mm-hmm.
some, it is changing your lifestyle. I'm been also looking at, as I'm studying all of these things around rest and burnout and overwork, it is the concept of doing less.
Mm-hmm.
I think less is what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is less holding myself to an impossible standard and more embracing that I show up in my genius every day.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
is less trying to, fit everything that everyone else needs from me, and more delegation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And did we talk about, I'm sorry,
No, that's fine.
this
You're fine.
moment, because I feel like we had a conversation about, did we have a conversation about heart disease and how like,
Oh, we did. Yes.
how like, because a lot of women don't, like a lot of people think it's like a African-American disease sometimes because of like
Nope.
the.
It's the number one killer of women in the United States, period.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for all of our sisters, they should be paying attention. It is a silent killer, in that most women do not believe that they are susceptible to heart disease. In the African-American community, up to 50% will experience heart disease in some way, shape, or form. And it kills too many of us every year. And one of the things that I think, I was just having this discussion about how the research is presented, is that even in how some of the large organizations talk about the data, it almost has a blame in the way they present the information. That, because you're Black, and because you genetically are experiencing this, like not talking about, because one of the factors is that African Americans respond differently to sodium in their diet. And so it's not saying you put more sodium in your diet. It's saying you respond differently to sodium in your diet, right? But it's not presented that way. And so it is also presented like, well, it's because of racism, and they didn't just come out and say like you're experiencing racism, which is what should have been said. But it's like, like perceived racism. What is perceived racism? I'm experiencing racism. Like it's not perceived, it's happening. It is also because as a people, regardless of education, when you seek medical attention, you are more likely as a Black and brown person to be ignored, to be gaslit about your symptoms, to not receive the care necessary or the investigation into what you're experiencing, which is why Black mothers are the highest maternal death, that Black women are dying at third world country levels in the United States. Really? From poor health care. And we're talking about doctors, we're talking about nurses, we're talking about professionals in the medical field and every other field who are highly educated, and on down to those who have the education level that they show up with, who are being mistreated, misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, and dying from it. Just having babies. The United States is last in the developed world for maternal health.
And this is probably why a lot of people are getting like the doulas and like.
Oh, absolutely. Because you need that. Like a doula is key for an African-American woman, because you need to have someone else advocating on your behalf. It is unacceptable to be in the situation in the way that it happens in the United States, to go into birth. And this is a whole nother conversation we could have, because I had a traumatic experience with a lost pregnancy where I was hemorrhaging and the hospital wanted to send me home.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I refused.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a patient advocate, professional patient advocate at that time, I was like, oh, no. You're not sending me out this hospital, because I'm not going to go 45 minutes away so that I die and leave my family when I was in a hospital that could help me.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it's really, those are things that are not being addressed. And why are the numbers so bad for African-American women and heart disease? The 50% does not care about your educational background. It is not only women who would be considered impoverished. It is women of every level. I happen to know personally a woman who her story is probably known. The chairman of Victoria's Secrets had a stroke probably about 20 years ago now, had a stroke when she was leading nationwide insurance because of heart disease, healthy model body, these are the things, but was under tremendous stress as she was leading, a Fortune 500, all of these different things, all of these different factors. So it doesn't care that, you're doing well and you're educating, you have access to funds. It cares that we are under chronic stress. It cares that genetically the nutritional balance of our food in this country is out of whack, right? It cares that it's silent, and that we often don't recognize the signs. I was reading stats today that said less than half of women understand that chest pain is a sign of a heart attack.
That's crazy.
Or that less than half of women understand that shoulder, neck, back pain is also a sign of a heart attack. And because of that, we're dying. And so it's just, but that whole idea of overwork and chronic stress, we're only feeding into it. Right? We're giving an additional factor that we could take away by doing less. And my challenge right now is just to figure out, how can I show up in my genius, but choose to do less, choose to stop trying to prove myself to people that are not worthy of that type of effort. Because here's the thing, and I'll just tell your audience this, that if and when you die, they're going to post your job tomorrow. So I would reconsider the type of commitment I make to somewhere that is very okay with replacing me. Right.
And I think this is a letter to everybody, because
Absolutely.
If you look at your journey, you experienced all these different things while you were in the nonprofit world,
right?
Serving as an employee or employee. Those experiences taught you what not to do,
right?
What was important to you, like your health, your mental health. And also now you've taken those things and now you want to be able to help other Black women in order for them to really not just become leaders. So I want y'all in the comment section just hear this. Tauna just is not coming to say, let me show you how to be a leader.
Right.
I am coming to you with empathy, with care, with support to say to you, let's show you how to be a great person in your job, your life, your passion, your health, your mental health, for your family. Because like she said, if you go away tomorrow, they care. This is not an explicit show, but they don't care, right? Right. It is not, they won't shed no tear, they won't be sad, but life goes on.
Right.
But you're able to create a legacy on the other hand, like Tauna, you're creating a legacy. Like you're truly giving back and really helping people understand who they are. Because if I'm a leader, I have to know who I am.
Right.
I had to be and that means I need to be emotionally intelligent. I need to really understand the importance of not only my physical health, but my mental health, right? I really need to know these things to live, not just to survive, to live, right? Because this stuff can take you out, as you mentioned, really quick.
Yeah.
So this is really good information. And I'm telling you guys, I'm not just people in nonprofit, just women in leadership. Y'all need to really get her information to follow her because it's life changing. So it's because it's like if we're dropping by the droves, because we're misdiagnosed, or it's not, we're not, like educated, like you really educated today. Right. Like you dropped some stats, you told us what was what, you told us about all this stuff. So it's not just, okay, I'm going to take you through the process. I'm going to educate you. I just went to the doctor and she was like, yes, I'm gonna have you take this exam, to make sure your heart doesn't have any blockage. And I'm like,
right.
Okay. And it's like, I'm only 43. I had to think about that because my birthday's coming up, but I'm like, I'm only 43, but it was like, you know what, let me do this because my brother passed away at 53. Right.
Right.
And she was just like, well, I want to do that because that's still young. I don't care what
Right.
he's on.
Right.
So it's just like, so it's very important that we really take our health because it's no race to get to the finish line. Like,
No.
right.
The key is that, I mean, you're hitting on it. One, we just want to live a great life, right? Like that's part of it. But the people who will miss you the most are your loved ones.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of recentering back to, I need to be here for my babies.
Absolutely.
I need their aunties and uncles to be here for my babies. I don't have to explain to them about the loss or for them to feel that my grandfather died from heart disease. Right. So I understand at a very young age, he was in his 60s. And the impact that had on me then, now, and into the future, I don't want that same thing for my children. And so it is so important that you prioritize you because we need you, right? Like it's not the same experience without you. And you can be, brilliant in how you put together the widgets and how you run the numbers and how, when you get up on the stage and speak to people, but if you're not here to do that, it does not mean anything. I mean, I just recently lost one of my best friends to heart disease.
Wow.
And so and he was 40. I'm still in the anger phase because I'm just like, it just doesn't make good sense that you're not here. And so it's just so important to me that when we're thinking about how we address, the aspects of leadership, that we are taking this holistic approach. Because I can teach you how to speak and I can teach you how to put your stats together, but I cannot replicate you. And without you, it's not the same. And so that to me, like you said, it is a legacy for me. It is taking all of those challenging experiences and tears and sacrifices that I've endured and flipping it around and saying, I'm going to use this to help someone else. And if one person is better, then great, but I'd love for thousands to be better so that we take those experiences and we put seeds of greatness and wholeness and wellness into other people and allow that to be what blooms. Because to me, if I have anything to do with fixing the DEI structures and fixing systemic racism and fixing what's wrong in our spaces, it is by upholding those who are in that race, who are in that space right now so that they don't succumb to the mistreatment, that they're able to rise and continue to thrive and live and support our communities in a way that's impactful.
And that is like this is why this is called the Powerhouse mindset. We know about mindset, right? We're familiar with the term. I'm not sure who's all implementing it, but we know about it. But the Powerhouse mindset is not just focusing on an aspect of something, being a leader or anything like that. It's who you are all around, right? That is a Powerhouse mindset. The last thing I want to ask you is, why is it important? And I know you kind of talk about this, to balance your mental health. Why do you feel like, now we talk about, your physical health, this to like really go get checked out, read up on some disease and things like that. Like, don't take it serious. I had a friend who, she said if she was in the middle of a heart attack, 50 something, maybe, I think she, maybe late 40s, 50 something, in the middle of a heart attack. And she woke up because of her dogs,
Mm,
right? She said that if her dogs would not have woken her, she would have
good
been out.
guy.
She actually died on her way to the hospital,
Jesus.
and they resuscitated her young. She was
Wow.
stressed out, grieving. She was
Wow.
grieving,
Yeah.
stressed out. And she was on her way to the hospital. And she was like, I knew it was something because I woke. She said, my dog did something. I woke up and I started throwing up blood. And now I'll let her tell her
Jesus.
story. And I'm not gonna get like all into it, but
Yes.
she's young, right?
Yeah.
She's stressed out, like,
Mhm.
bereavement and all that stuff. So don't think it can't, she hadn't had any
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
issues with, so I really try to take that seriously and like,
Right.
even like, okay, how do I eliminate or limit my stress?
Right.
When we talk about mental health, you mentioned anxiety, you talked about
Right.
depression. Talk to us about why is it important to balance your mental health?
I think one, when we center on care for ourselves,
Mhm.
that we are a whole person, right? We have a body, we have a mind, we have a spirit. And when we think about our mental health, that is in your central control,
Mhm.
right? Everything you do is coming out of that space. So it is everything, the way you see the world, the way you process what's happening is all coming from that mental health space. And if we allow ourselves, for whatever reason, whether it is a genetic experience, whether you have a chemical imbalance, and whether it is external caused,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't matter what the cause is. It is going to affect everything you do. And it's going to affect how you see and experience the world. And it is a thief of joy in a lot of spaces. And I feel like sometimes what leads us to a path of hopelessness is that loss of joy, because we can't feel joy and we feel like it's never going to come back.
Yeah.
And that type of life is not ideal. And so I think it's important for us to think about and to recognize and seek the help we need around our mental health, because those are also risk factors for other things. It also prevents you from being the greatest leader that you want to be, the greatest human that you want to be. It prevents us from being able to show up and experience. And it doesn't mean that I believe mental health is like a switch, an on off. I can fix it and it's done. Right? It is not. It is a journey. Just like if you experience diabetes, that is a thing that you experience throughout your life, and you do things throughout your life to care for yourself. Given that situation, you take special precautions, you set up boundaries. The same thing with your mental health. If you know that a certain thing causes you anxiety, we need to be thinking about a boundary around that. How do we create a space that is going to be conducive to your mental health, supportive of your mental health and things? And that's where I was talking earlier about leaving a place, making those decisions that, can I stay here and be a healthy me, or do I need to leave? For me, once I had a role that I it was time to go. It had become very toxic. That was the first time I realized a relationship could be an employment relationship, could be abusive. But I started having anxiety and migraines every day on the way to work.
Wow, on the way to work.
And so because we hold it in our body, like our body is trying to tell us the things. And so, anxiety is your body's alarm that something is wrong. Sometimes it gets triggered and it doesn't know how to turn off. That's the thing.
Yep.
But for a lot of us, we're not listening to the anxiety. If anxiety becomes present when you go into certain situations, you might want to step back.
Yeah.
Hear yourself, examine why that's happening. If it is a persistent part of your day-to-day, what do you need to do to support you? Because you're worth it. And it is, we want to continue to come against that stigma that because something is wrong, it means that you're broken.
That's good.
Right? It's part of the journey. We all have this experience. And I think that in our culture, we still have so many misnomers and misunderstandings about what that is, because we were historically denied access to support. So we had to hide it within our community, right? Like, let's think about why the things were happening. If we didn't have access to, and we know that just recently, mental health as a field of support has come along as a better approach to some of the stuff they did before was heinous and not helpful to anyone. But even in that, what we had to do to survive, right? So as a people, we did everything we could to hide our weaknesses because we had to. Because that was how you survived. And you couldn't show because dominant culture was going to hone in on that and be on it. And so we have taught ourselves that that's what we must do. We need to unlearn that and learn that we're worthy of support and help, that we're worthy of seeking out opportunities that will support us as we move forward. And that if it doesn't feel right, then maybe it's not, but we don't have to hide it. We don't have to shoulder it alone. You know, we don't have to continue. And if you go to the first person, and this is a really, really important piece, if you go to the first person to seek help and they don't hear you, they don't meet you where you are, don't give up. Go to someone else.
That's
because
good.
sometimes we go and seek help and we're like, I'm stressed out. You say I'm stressed out to one person. They're like, girl, you got it. No, I don't. No, I don't. But you need to don't internalize that you don't need help because the first person is not equipped to be the help that you need. Seek professional help. If it's not, a lot of people don't know that you need to test out therapists. You're not necessarily going to find the right one on the first time. You also, I know in Central Ohio where we are based, the number of mental health therapists and counselors who are women of color or are people of color is so small, and they all have a waiting list to get in. And so if that's what you're looking for, don't wait, right? Like, wow, get on the waiting list for them, but don't wait, get help now, because you never know when a trigger will happen that can escalate the experience. Bereavement is a huge trigger for heart disease. Because it just as much as our love is in our heart, like grief, depression, and those things go straight to our heart, like as a harm. And so it is understanding that we are strong and fragile all at the same time. And that's okay. That's the beauty of how God created us and how he made us. But it is so important not to ignore that piece or to think it's separate. Right. My mental health is separate from my leadership, or my mental health is separate from how I show up in my day to day. And it absolutely is not. It's where all of those things start. And everything you do is coming from that place. And you should be well supported and well prepared for this life, like this journey. It just needs not be alone.
And for me, I think one of the things that you said that was very powerful was, a lot of times you will have someone say, girl, it'll be all right. Girl, right. Because we're taught to be strong and it's like, and then a lot of times if you say that, because you said okay, go to someone else. Because when we hear girl, be strong, we think we're weak. We think we're not. We're not, and it's like I love the phrase, it's okay to not be okay. Right. Because it's like, it is okay to just have a moment and be like, I'm doing this. And you brought up something else, triggers. I tell people all the time, triggers are like these little things you're saying, you're on a map, and the triggers are saying you're here, right? On the map. This is where you are on the map. So and sometimes I have a lot of people do not understand or know they're triggered. They're just reacting, right? Their body is just, I don't know. And then it's just like, let's take a minute and go down a road to see what's really going on with your body and why you're being triggered. And you'll be amazed as what that is connected to.
Absolutely.
I remember a time I had loss after loss, 3 major losses back to back, right? And I had a dream, and I love telling this story. And I had a dream one day, and this is related to heart. That's why I was like, okay, let me get my heart checked out. But I had a dream one day, and then this dream is very vivid. I went to the doctor to get my heart checked on because I was like, I'm having chest pain, right? And I went to the doctor, and it was Jesus. And I don't, you know how like in your
Right.
dream,
Yep.
next guys, you're like, I don't know why, but Jesus was giving me this X-ray, and this computer was so crystal clear. I don't know why I remember that part, but it was super clear. And you know, he takes my X-ray picture and he zooms in and he shows me my heart, and he go, you are still grieving from your sister, from the loss of your sister, your mom, and your dog. And now, you know, like it was all back to back. And he said, and because of this, it caused you to be so anxious, because when my kids will leave the house, listen, I'm like, where they going? Where they at? You know, like, and then if they're not responding, I'm like hyped up. I'm like, you know, they like, mom, like, and he was like, in that anxiety, that work is causing you to have these ailments. It was so impactful, right? And I was like, okay, so, and I was triggered because I didn't want to lose someone close to me again. That was my trigger. Like, I don't want that. I just want my kids to stay in the house. I want everybody to stay in the house and don't move.
Been
like,
there.
Right?
Where I can see you, where I can control the situation.
But the truth, the fact was, I was really being triggered. And then I was just like, my kids are grown, like they're not going to stay in the house, right? So it's just kind of like, you really having to know yourself and identifying, oh, here was the root of the issue was because of my losses. So you really have to be self-aware, like you said, really, really dealing with your mental health. I know I hear a lot of people say you have to treat your mental health, like you mentioned, like your physical health.
Yes.
You can't just sit up here like, oh, I just worry sometimes, or, you know, or I'm just sad sometimes. Like, really pay attention to how your body is responding to not just your, like you had mentioned, some people you're having shoulder pains, you're having back pain, and you're not taking it seriously. So really being in a space of reading your body and giving your body what you need as you're doing this. This has been like, when I tell you, we could probably go on for 5 hours, because it was very intriguing to me is like, you're so informative, like the details that you break down is amazing. And I'm like, we need to do like a part 2 for real. I tell everybody,
I'm down.
need to really do like, because it's important. And for my ladies who are leading, I just want you to understand that there's a balance to all of this, and that you have to have the whole, and burnout is a real, and you need to learn how to balance your mental health. So Tauna, tell us what's next for you, and then tell us where we can find you.
Yes. So what's next for us is we are launching our executive leadership retreats for women in nonprofit. So you'll be able to find more about that. Let's see, we go live in May. So right around the time that this is launching, you'll be able to find that on moreretreat.com. But I'm so excited just to continue to serve our folks. We're really doing a lot of cool things around this space of educating women. You can find me on LinkedIn at Tauna Batiste, or you can also find me at our website for the organization is drewalexanderco.com. And we would just love to talk to you. We're also on Facebook at Drew Alexander as well. We're just really excited to continue to offer opportunities to educate women. And so we'll also be doing some lives out on LinkedIn. So more conversations like this, more information, just making sure that we all stay informed and equipped. But it's been such a pleasure, Janelle. Thank you so much for having us on. Just really, really excited. And I'm so excited for all of those who are listening to take away a nugget or two and improve their health.
Yeah, our 5, because our 10 has been like, it's been like so amazing. And I love these talks because it's like, oh, it's so many ways you can go. And then one things that I think is so important is that your story. Like, I just love how you were able to take something that, you know, you just made lemon out of lemonades, that you were able to take something and create a bridge a gap. And just create a legacy from it. So thank you for the work that you do and reaching Black women. Like, I can see so much, like that you're doing with this, that it will really impact women and really change the
Mhm.
trajectory of leadership,
Yeah,
right? In the
I think so.
nonprofit world. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
listen, I'm going to put all her information, her links and all this stuff in the bio. Make sure you follow her and reach out to her, especially if you the woman in that nonprofit role and you like, I'm about to tap out, burn out, I'm about to, all that stuff. Let's be honest, because this is one thing she talked about. Get the help that you need so that you can really be there for the people who truly love you, not the
Mhm.
job that's going to replace you. So make sure you're doing that soon. So it's been a great honor to have you. Make sure y'all taking notes. Please comment below. And I appreciate you, but you have to remember that you have to stay in your true authenticity, your power, and your purpose. As you see, she came and was like, this is me. Don't lose who you are. Don't try to fit into places that try to pigeonhole you when they're trying to make you be somebody you're not. So just like she did, she was able to create her own because people were
Mhm.
trying to pigeonhole her authenticity. All right. So it's been a great pleasure, and I will see y'all next time.